This video runs through Packet Tracer 6217 from the Routing and Switching Essentials version 6 curriculum. And we're going to talk about configuring VLANs. And as we go through it, I'm going to explain what's happening at each step. As we start, let's look at how this is set up. First, we see that the PCs are already on separate networks. So you've got a 10.21, 20.22, 30.23, and then the VLANs mirroring it on the other side. But they still are all on one common flat LAN, meaning that any broadcast will be sent to all of the PCs. So first of all, let's take a look at this and verify the connectivity. So let's go to PC1, desktop command prompt, and we are going to ping PC4. Ping 172.17.10.24. And we can see that that ping is successful. All right, I want to take a look at this in the simulation mode that Packet Tracer has set up. So I'm going to ping from PC2 to PC5. We'll do the same kind of thing. We're going to do a command prompt, and we're going to ping 172.17.20.25. And now we can see as soon as we hit start the ping, we get a red ping packet and a green ARP request because PC2 does not know the MAC address for PC5, so it has to broadcast that. So when the ARP request is sent, it reaches S2, and then it is broadcast out. So it's hitting all of the other PCs in this network. And obviously on a small network like what we have here, that's not that big of a deal. That's not that much traffic. But as your networks grow and get larger, then it's going to be an issue. Once the ARP request response has been received, then you can see that the ping goes through. So again, we can verify that we do indeed have connectivity on all of our machines. So now that we've got that, we're going to start into our configuration. So here we are. Part 2, step 1, create and name the VLAN. So I'm going to start with S1, go into the command command line interface, and enable and go into the configuration mode. And now that I'm here, I'm ready to get started. So configuration for this is pretty simple. You just type in VLAN and then the number. And now you can see we're configuring the VLAN, so I'm going to give it a name. So this one is going to be faculty staff. And we move on through there. So second one is students. And 30 is guest default. Oops, that is in parentheses. Notice on these packet tracers, these things, the names are going to be case sensitive. So make sure that you're careful if you're doing this for credit, that you get all of those details in place. Management and native. Oops. All right. When I mistype it, I get an error message, so I can hit the up arrow, and I can just add in the information I need at the beginning of that line, and that fixes it. And that's all there is to it. All right, so S1 is done. But we've got to do the same thing on S2 and S3. This gets old, right? I don't like typing the same thing that many times. So I have created a text file that has all of these commands entered into it. One command per line. So I can just highlight all of that and copy it. Now when I go to S2, I can go to the CLI. I have to get to configuration mode, of course. But now that I'm here, I can just right-click and paste, and it creates those VLANs. We'll do the same thing on S3, command line, config mode, and paste, and that's done. All right, the next thing we're asked to do is verify these. So I'm going to exit out of the configuration mode, and I'm going to do a show VLAN. Now notice when I hit show VLAN that the information that it gives me is kind of spread out in strange ways. The end of line is not right, so I'm going to spread these windows out so that I make sure that one line is one line on my view. So if I do a show VLAN, I get information and a little bit more than what I really need. I don't really care about some of this information. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do a show VLAN brief, and that gives me just the VLAN names that I want to see here. So I can verify that all of those have been created. And I'll do that on S2 and S1 as well. Okay, so now I've verified I have the correct VLANs configured on all three of my switches. So I'm ready to move on to the next piece of this, which will be assigning the VLANs to port. You'll notice when I do a show VLAN, I'm going to go to S2 because that's where I'll start here. Notice when I look at S2, all of my ports are still on VLAN 1, FA01, 2, 3, all the way through gig 01 and gig 02. I have the other ones listed in my table, but I don't have any ports assigned to them. So my next step is going to be assigning those. The way that I do this is I go to configuration mode again, and I go to the specific interface that I want to configure. So VLAN 10 is on, F011 is on VLAN 10. So I'm going to do interface fast Ethernet 11. And there's two steps to this. So the first thing is I want to make sure that it always goes to switch port mode access. So that is my first command. If I don't enter this command here, then my port stays in a negotiation mode. So if someone were to connect a piece of equipment at the other end of this line where it wants to trunk, then that trunk would be negotiated. Now it's going to force it to be in access mode. And once it's in access mode, then I can do a switch port VLAN, switch port access VLAN 10. All right, so that's done. That's all I need to do with F11 right now. Let's move on to the next one. So interface F018. And now I'm going to use the up arrow because I don't need to type these things over and over again. But make sure that you change the VLAN number on each one of these. So F18 goes to VLAN 20. And then F06 is going to go to VLAN 30. So now when I do a show VLAN brief, then I can see that faculty, students, and guests now each have a port assigned to that VLAN. So that has been configured correctly. Now I've got to do the same thing on S3. Now remember, I am doing the exact same thing. I don't need to type it all out again. I've created the text document so I can copy and paste that in. So it's already enabled, so go to Conf T and paste, and F11, F18, F06, and they're now in switch port access mode and on the correct VLANs. Now, the next thing that the packet tracer wants us to do is assign the voice VLAN to F011 on S3. There's not good instructions on how you do this in the book, but it does mention the commands that you'll need. So we'll enter those here so that we get those on there. If you want to know more details about how these commands work, you'll need to do a little more research on your own. That's outside the scope of this particular lesson. So now first we have to go back to the correct interface, so interface F011. And the first command we do is mls qos trust cos. And now we can say switch port voice VLAN 150. So now I'm going to do a show VLAN brief on here, and we can see that F011 is on 10 and 20 and 30, so those are all configured correctly. At this point, you can see that once I did the voice VLAN, my completion percentage jumped up to 100% complete. I don't want to leave it at that because if you're paying attention, you'll know that we can't ping anything. So if I go back to PC1, my ping is going to fail. So the reason for that is because we've created VLANs, we need to make sure that those VLANs connect all the way across. So PC1, F011, this link is on VLAN 1, this link is on VLAN 1, but there's no links in between. So there's no way for VLAN 1 traffic to, or I'm sorry, VLAN 10, there's no way for VLAN 10 traffic to get from S2 to S1 and then from S1 to S3. So what we need to do is configure trunking on the links between the switches. VLAN trunks will allow traffic from multiple VLANs to pass across them. So that just means we need to configure those three things on S1, S2, and S3. So let's start with S1. So on S1, this is going to be interface gig01 and gig02. We can see that listed right there on the packet tracer. So interface gig01. We could actually use an interface range command on here, but I'm already here. So switch port mode trunk and interface gig02 switch port mode trunk. You'll notice that when I put that in that the line goes down and then comes right back up. That's because the ports on the other end are still in a negotiation mode. So as soon as we put in that switch port mode trunk, S1 talks to S2 and says, hey, can we trunk on this link? S2 says, yeah, I'm set up to negotiate that, so let's do it. But like we said, that's not the way we want to leave it. So let's go ahead to S2, and we're going to go to configuration mode, interface gig01. We can see that right there is gig01, and switch port mode trunk. All right, and then we'll do the same thing on S3, but this time we're going to do it on gig02. So gig02, switch port mode trunk. And that's it. So now we've successfully trunked those. Now our packets should ping across without any trouble, and we can see that they do. Now I'm going to switch back to simulation mode and go to PC3, and I'm going to ping from PC3 to PC6. The first thing this is going to have to do is send an ARP request because it does not know the MAC address for this other PC. And so we'll watch as it goes across. Remember, ARP requests are broadcast. So before, when we sent an ARP request to S2, it was broadcast out all of the ports except for the port on S2 that it came in on. Now this time, when we're going to forward it, the ARP request hits S2, and now you see that it is broadcast out all of the other ports on that VLAN, which is only the trunk. So it goes to S1, S3, and then hits PC6, and the response comes back. And then when we switch back to real-time mode, then that ping completes successfully. So that's how we configure VLANs. You want to practice this on your own. This is a very important piece of Cisco's infrastructure and network infrastructure as a whole. If there's something that you didn't understand, check back in your readings or do a little Googling on the topic for more information.